Hi, my name is Shantell Quintanar. I'm a realtor in Denver, Colorado.
Hi, I'm Laura Melquist, a realtor in Colorado and Minnesota.
This is the M.O.R.E podcast. We are the mothers of real estate. We are really talking about family, real estate, wealth building, and anything related to just building a great community.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to the M.O.R.E podcast. Today, our episode is going to be focusing on protection in pumps.
Yes. Okay. So what that means is we're going to have an amazing lawyer on the episode. She owns her own law firm. She is really passionate about protecting and advocating for her clients. And she is also fashionable, which we love, right?
Yes. Absolutely.
So just talking about protection though, you advocate for your clients. You're very about, speaking for the voiceless, as am I. How do you implement that in your business? And what does that mean to you?
Yeah, so I think, there's protection for your clients amongst everything, but I think a lot of things that we forget about is protection for ourselves. We're in a profession that is actually quite dangerous, in my opinion, and with so many agents pushing towards, less organic ways of getting clients, such as paid leads or different things, sorts of that, or even just getting a message on social media from a stranger. And there are some agents out there that are just going to meet them at a house that's vacant.
Yeah.
Or, putting themselves into situations that they really shouldn't. So, obviously I wear heels, I wear pumps, I wear everything. But you want to make sure that you're protected first and foremost, and then you can start protecting others.
Yeah, for sure. So I know the listeners don't know this. I don't know if you know this. So my company's name is Alexander Company. That was my grandfather's name. So he, was a big impression. He left a big impression on me as far as real estate because he did flips. And so that was kind of what he invested in real estate since we were young. He was kind of the only person I ever knew that did that. I used to help him in Arizona with some of his flips in the summer and things like that. And so that was, one of the reasons that we named our company Alexander Company is because of the impact he had on me. But ironically enough, when I looked up the name Alexander, the definition for that name is protector of men or women. Now we're a little more progressive in the world, but protector of men to me felt like a perfect name for the company because that's exactly why I got into real estate. I got into real estate to be able to advocate for first-time homebuyers and people who maybe didn't have I just talked to a client yesterday that said, these lenders weren't very nice to me once they figured out what my income was and that I wasn't going to probably be able to buy something. And we hear realtors do that too, where they aren't going to help somebody with their manufactured home or condo or townhome or something that's maybe not, it's beneath them.
Yep.
And so that was really important. But I love helping all clients. I will never turn away business. I just want to preface that. But my sweet spot is really first-time home buyers, people who are in, the golden age of their life and they're kind of, maybe downsizing or moving on to something that's a little more assisted, military, like those people. And I think they do need advocating because unfortunately they're not always represented well.
They definitely do. And, I have had so many times, more so senior citizen aged people are saying, you know what, I tried to ask for help and, I was turned down, or someone was willing to help me for a couple minutes, but they weren't patient enough with me. Where they were just like, they didn't even want to help me because, there are some elderly that are a little bit slower moving.
Sure.
Or for instance, I have a client and I know that I have to schedule an hour for the showing because it takes her a long time to get out of her vehicle.
Yeah.
And then into the house. And so, the patience to have that, not only advocating, in general on buying and purchasing a home, but being patient and willing to help those people. Another class that, I really, especially when I first got into real estate, I still do quite often, is single moms.
Yeah.
So there's been many times where, single moms have told me they've met realtors at houses and they've gotten discriminated against because they, end up saying, oh yeah, and your husband this and husband this. And when they say, no, it's just going to be me and my kids, they automatically assume you can't afford this. And so
they'd prefer a family. I know you told me that somebody said that, like they would prefer a family.
I had
which is a discrimination issue, by the way.
Yeah, it's fair. It goes against fair housing. But, in that instance, I was showing a single woman a home, and the sellers happened to be waiting outside for us, and they wanted to chat us up. And, they just made a comment to me that was, hey, we would really prefer a nice family to move in, after seeing that my client was a single lady,
Yeah.
And so, there's those little things that happen on a daily basis. And I always advocate for my clients, but I also educate my clients of, you can't do X, Y, and Z. And if you're going to be discriminating for anything on, family status, anything with fair housing, I unfortunately can't help you.
Right. Right. Yeah, I think, the protection side of the industry is not always discussed. And again, with our guest and having a law firm and what she does to protect her clients. But I think it's really, really important as an entrepreneur in general that you're thinking about how to safeguard your clients, how to safeguard yourself. That's a really good point. Like, what are you doing to protect your own, those hip hop people, protect your neck. But that's one of those things that, you really need to make sure that you're thinking through things, because unfortunately, I even think about national tragedies. Unfortunately, I'm of the generation where this wasn't as common. My daughter goes to Columbine. When I was in high school is when Columbine happened. And they started implementing all of these protective actions and security system after the fact. Which great, at least they adapted, but we don't always do things until after something happens. And I think that it's really, really important when you're helping other people in any capacity to be able to really think through and, think through the logistics of things before it's too late and before you have woulda, shoulda, coulda. So I love that fact about talking about the agents too, because as women, we're in a very particular scenario usually where we're not always as safeguarded.
Yeah. And, this is not sponsored, what I'm about to say, but I do highly recommend, if you don't have it already, the Forewarn app. Now, depending on which realtor association you're a part of, some of them will cover that cost. Otherwise, it comes down to about $20 a month.
Yeah.
What that does is you're able to put in a prospective client potentially, or somebody's phone number, their name, email address. And what that'll do is a little background check on them. So you'll be able to see, the places they lived, if they've owned anything, their cars, if their criminal history, everything will pop up on that app for you.
Yeah.
And there has been times where, I have put in someone's information and a pretty scary crime pops up.
Mm-hmm.
And, not that I want to discriminate against that, because there's plenty of felons and whatnot that, are really great people that I want to help get into homes as well.
Sure.
But as a woman, if you see, for instance, there was a sexual assault case on there, maybe not, my first meeting is going to be in a vacant home. Like,
Right.
Those different steps you can take, and it's very minimally cost, can really help you long term, because we definitely don't want anything terrible happening.
For sure. And trusting your gut, trusting your instinct. And at the end of the day, I mean, we're very, and as an industry of money grabbers, then you might refer it out to somebody.
Yeah. You definitely might. And there's been times too where I've been on the phone, with somebody, and I can just tell they would really prefer a male agent.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not gonna serve their purpose here.
Right.
Or they're just gonna talk to me and then go use a male agent anyways.
Or they want to date you and that's their only.
Yeah, like why don't I test the waters? Do you just want to date me? I'm gonna refer you over to him. And
Right.
if you're still trying to buy, then I might actually decide to be your agent.
Right.
But I think, it's just really important to understand those things, and really protect yourself first, but obviously advocate for your clients.
Yeah.
That is our job, our fiduciary duty, and something that we really need to uphold as agents.
Yes. So we're going to talk to our amazing guest about her protecting in pumps, and we're out there doing that too. So hopefully we hear our female entrepreneurs doing the same thing. You can wear those heels and you can protect yourself and others and kick some ass.
Yep. Even if you're over 6 foot, so wear those heels.
That's right. Okay. I am so excited. We have the amazing Lauren Varner here. She is the owner of her own law firm. She is a badass. She is just a powerhouse. And so I was super excited to have you as our guest. Laura has been hearing about you forever. So now you get to meet.
I love it.
I am. I'm a hype woman. That's one thing I can say is like I will always be your cheerleader if you're doing cool things, especially as a woman. So
Yes.
I love that. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Yes. Laura wanted to talk a little bit about your accolades because she said that she was really impressed with.
Yes. I was really impressed just with your bio and everything that you have been honored with, whether that's Colorado, just across the board. Tell me a little bit about, all of those awards that you've gotten and how you've been helping. Not all of them. We might not have time for that. But the ones that really, have really made you excited and were really an honor for you, but also, it sounds like you help people at DU as well. So
Do. Yeah. I mean, I'm honored to have gotten different awards over time. I would say there are a couple that probably are the most meaningful. I don't know if you know, but like it's probably the case in many professions. You can like pay for certain awards,
Oh,
right? You know,
Real estate is definitely one of those professions.
I don't do those.
No.
okay, good.
Yeah. But there are two different ones, Super Lawyers and then 5280 Magazine.
Yeah.
And you have to be nominated by other lawyers. They like vet you, they research you. I think maybe it's for both. They do follow-up calls to like research the nominees. They call other
Like reference
lawyers
checks
on the
and stuff.
list.
Mhm.
Yeah. So I've been on Super Lawyers since 2019 each year. And then the past 3 years, I was included in 5280 Magazine.
Wow.
So that was
big
fun.
deal.
And yeah, I did a little spot, with a picture and
Yeah.
a bio and things. So that was really fun.
That's so fun. And also just, I mean, I'm assuming that helps your business as far as like just getting your name out there and recognition.
I would say a lot of that is brand recognition.
Sure.
I mean, hopefully clients read it and they like it resonates with them and it's compelling to them and they call. But I think a lot of that stuff is just like building brand recognition.
Yeah.
And it's worth spending the money on certain things like the billboards and
Heck
stuff,
yeah.
visibility,
Yeah. I'm gonna touch on the billboard since you brought it up. I was gonna
You were gonna leave it out.
I wasn't gonna leave it out, but I mean, I talk about it all the time. So the way that I was exposed to you is we were social media friends.
Yes.
And then I drove by and saw this amazing fashion forward billboard. And what did it say?
So our first one said, "Fuck around and find out."
For personal
But
injury attorney.
I will clarify that UCK, those were asterisks.
Right, right.
So,
Yes.
It
Yeah,
was
it didn't-
It was
public.
appropriate.
Public.
Yes.
Yes,
That's
exactly.
right.
Yes.
We would never.
No. And I'll tell you, like, it's been very divisive in the like legal field and the personal injury field. A lot of the older attorneys think it's like not appropriate, not
Sure.
professional. But you and I have talked about this. That's kind of by design.
Right.
Mhm.
That was
Yeah.
intentional. You didn't,
Right.
you weren't confused about what message you're
Right.
sending.
And for a number of reasons. I would say, to us, it's really important to be like, our brand is just, we're edgy and that's just like how we are. We're super extra.
Yeah.
I know that. I'm not trying to hide anything,
Right.
but it's important to us that we present that to the public and the community because we want to open up space for people to actually like be themselves, be
Yeah.
authentic.
Yep.
And hopefully with that, people will realize you can be yourself and you can also be a professional.
That's
Like, you
right.
don't have to compartmentalize all the things,
Right.
which I don't think is really healthy for you.
Right.
Right.
You know?
Right.
I mean, to like put on one like facade,
Facade.
yeah, throughout the day, and then you go home and you're somebody different.
For
I
sure.
don't want to do that.
Well, not only that, but it's so funny that people get so up in arms about just being yourself because
Yes.
there's a lot of skeletons in people's closets. You have these
Yeah.
buttoned up,
Totally.
professions, and then you start finding out their extracurricular activities. You're like, whoa, this is crazy.
Yeah.
And so it's so interesting the things that, what I love about you and what we try to really foster in everyone that we are, luckily associated with, is it is about your authentic self. And it is about, as women, and this being a woman podcast, fashion and bold, direction and just doing those things. So have you always been that? Were you out of the womb just like
Here I am.
a badass?
Well, I've always liked fashion, but I don't know. I mean, I think like as you get older, you develop a more distinct style.
Mhm.
And so I think I've kind of refined my look over time, right? Like the blonde hair is relatively new.
Oh,
And I
I
think
love
that's
it.
edgier.
Mhm.
And also I think, you know, as I've become more established and like comfortable with the message that we want to send,
Mhm.
I'm less fearful about expressing myself in that way. So I would say, you know, in the past, and part of me thinks maybe I'm rebelling to how I used to be as an attorney, right? Because I was so buttoned up. Like,
Yeah.
they taught us in law school, like that's how you have to be. This is not about you. This is all about the client.
Yep.
But at the same time, they're teaching you that the only way to connect with the jury is to be your authentic self. So like the
Mm.
more that, which is true, right? I mean,
Right.
after you form connection with anyone.
People can read through the line. People are smarter
Yep.
than we sometimes give credit for. They know when you're BSing.
Exactly.
Mhm.
Yep. And so as I've embraced that over time, I felt more comfortable just expressing myself.
Mhm.
You know, if I want to wear like thigh-high boots and like a blazer with huge ass shoulder pads and my
I love a
arm in it,
shoulder
like,
pad.
that's what I'm gonna do.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna be for everyone, and I get that. And that's fine. That's fine.
Yep. And you're going to attract that clientele that's meant for you,
Yes.
which I
Mhm.
think is very important in every industry. And so many people are afraid to do what you're doing.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, that's another part of why we want to do that, right? Just like being an example to people, opening up space for like greater acceptance.
Yep.
Of that, of greater self-expression.
Yep.
For
It's really
sure.
important to me.
I love that. I say this every podcast and you don't know this yet, but Laura is tired of hearing it. There's a book, it's called $1 Million Deals. And there's a whole chapter about that. It talks about the fact that most business owners are so afraid to send a message to a specific group of people. So they want to be the jack of all trades, right? They want to just say, everybody come one, come all. And that doesn't stand out to anybody. And so I think I'm sure you've probably seen the fact that you probably enjoy the people you're working with more because they know what they're getting and they're not going to be,
Exactly.
appalled after the fact. They're seeing
Yeah.
an awesome billboard or seeing you in your thigh-high boots and saying, all right, like this is what I'm getting and I want that.
Absolutely. And you referenced this, right? Like if you are authentic, the right people are going to find you.
Mm.
And then that sort of eliminates this notion of competition, right? Because there are so many cases, personal injury cases, people who need good representation. And, you know, we're all in agreement here. Like, not everyone is the right client for me, and I'm not the right lawyer for everyone.
Right.
And so I think that this does, just like you said, help the right people find me. And then, yeah, I mean, I feel like I have really, really authentic and good relationships with all of my clients.
Oh, I'm sure.
And it feels good. Like that nurtures you and it motivates you, right? Like it makes you excited to do your job
Yeah.
rather than dealing with like complete assholes who hate you and you're not one of them either.
Right.
Yep.
Feeling like you're trudging through the mud versus like actually enjoying what you're doing
Yeah,
and getting
it's
some
stressful,
fulfillment from it.
Right?
Yeah. And getting excited to wake up in the morning, go
For
to
sure.
work and do what you do.
I mean, the job is really stressful.
Yes.
The
No, I would assume
clients are the
so.
best.
Okay. So did you get out of law school and, jump into having your law firm? Did you start at, a different law firm? What did that look like?
Yep. So after my first year of law school, I started clerking with a small personal injury firm
Okay.
and stayed there. And then I took maybe like a couple months off to study for the bar. When I passed and became licensed, they hired me on. So I worked there for I think almost 8 years. And then Eric, my husband, and I got together. He's also a lawyer. He was a prosecutor.
It's like a TV show.
Oh, I love this.
And we actually both went to DU for law school, but we were a year apart and we never crossed paths, oddly enough.
Hmm.
So then we met on Tinder. It's a
Ooh.
modern day
Isn't that
romance.
insane? Like
God,
they were
yeah.
like right there and that's how they met. You
Right.
had to meet no matter what. They were like, okay, you're not doing it fast enough. The universe is gonna do it for
Exactly.
you.
And I told Chantel this, but he I think he was a little embarrassed that we met on Tinder, so he used to tell everyone that we met on LinkedIn. He thought it sounded better, I guess.
Close enough.
Yeah.
He's like, it was a very
I'm getting-
professional endeavor.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly.
Getting dates on LinkedIn. You love it.
But yeah, he's embracing the Tinder story more now. So
Okay. Be your
More
authentic
fun.
self.
I think it's
Right,
more fun.
exactly. Yeah, and he's on board with that message too. So
Oh, he so
authenticity.
is.
Yeah, you've seen it.
Yeah, if you
Could
look
be a
up,
sponsorship for Tinder, right?
have you seen her husband?
I have not.
That's
Oh,
extra.
like fashion, Versace silk shirt, beard, like just it's such a cool, to me it's so cool because again, you can just tell you're having fun. You can
Yeah.
tell as a
It's
couple you're
fun.
having fun, in your life you're having fun. That's what I like to see. I like to kind of, it's almost like, peeking behind the curtain to see like, what is this person You can find a good realtor. You can find a good personal injury attorney. You can find a good something. But I think it's just so cool when you're like, I also, cool. Like, I
Yeah.
also think
And I
this
love
is-
that about you too and your social media.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm the same way. I'm like, I'm not for everyone. I kind of say some things, some stuff that are a little outlandish sometimes, but
I think it's all adorable
thank you. I
and
appreciate
empowering.
the shortness.
I love it.
You get away with more.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I think it's definite. It's like it's the girl from Full House.
Apparently, I don't get away
Michelle.
with anything.
That's true.
Apparently, I don't get away with anything. I saw you from a mile away.
Yep,
That's
you
right. You
first,
can't sneak in or
exactly.
out. So as far as personal injury, like why was that the specialty you chose to go with?
Yep. So, I mean, I wouldn't say I kind of fell into law,
Okay.
because I wanted to be financially independent, right?
Same.
To be honest, right?
Yeah.
I saw my parents fighting about money a lot when I was
Mhm.
growing up, and I told myself like that's never going to be me. I'm going to find a job that gets me paid and like affords the lifestyle that I really want.
Heck yeah.
And so that's kind of how I chose law. And like it was so intimidating
Mhm.
going into law school because I went straight through. Everybody else kind of had already had like a career, or I would say most of the people already had. They were older, they had like worked in the law, or they had family members who were in the law. And yeah, that was intimidating.
Mm.
But my dad was an orthopedic surgeon. He's retired, he's been retired for a while, but he would treat, car accident victims
Mm.
and, would have to do surgeries on many of them and learn
Yeah.
about their impairment and how their functionality was being affected, right, because of their injuries.
Yeah.
And I worked in his office. So I learned a lot about it at that point, and then it just seemed like natural, like a
Yeah.
natural progression. And it was because, I mean, law school was tough and passing the bar was hard, but
Sure.
I eventually felt like even though I randomly fell into the law, like
Yeah.
this is absolutely my purpose.
So you were exposed to that specific kind of law and it interested you enough to like do all of that schooling
Yeah,
and
just
all
all
of
right.
that work and all of the things.
Well, I mean, I think I just like kind of fell into law, but
Yeah.
once I was already in it, then the natural like next step
Progression.
seemed like personal injury.
Yeah.
Yeah, just because of, having
Your
worked with my
background.
dad.
You get to get to know those clients beforehand.
Yeah, exactly. And just hearing about what they were going through, like that motivates you to want to help. And I think personal injury is just it's like so underrated and stigmatized, right? Like a lot of people, because of tort reform back in the day, people have really negative impressions of personal injury and personal injury lawyers, right?
Mm.
Like we're ambulance chasers and they think our clients are faking it or they're rolling the dice or whatever. And these people are legitimately injured, right? Like something
Right.
like they've been physically violated and something has been taken from them that they are legally and morally entitled to recover.
Right.
And I mean, that just like really speaks to me.
Yeah.
I just, you don't even know the way that these insurance companies play dirty.
Yeah. Well, that's the whole thing is like that protection side of things. And lawyers just as much. We are no different in our industry as far as people just hate our profession a lot of times because they've had a bad experience or they think we're overpaid or they think these things. And I think that when you do your business with integrity and when you're really focused on building a reputation that is around the person,
Yeah.
I think that shines through. And I know that you're very passionate about your clients and being able to actually help them versus just see them as a paycheck, which insurance companies can kind of do sometimes too, right?
Thank you. I appreciate you saying that. Yeah, I mean, I think the insurance companies, their job is just to pay out as little as possible, right? And that's why they employ these dirty tricks.
Sure.
And I've seen attorneys like firsthand who just want like a quick settlement, like how many of these
They want to get paid and
attorney
move on.
right? And that there is no like integrity in that, right?
Yeah.
You're really doing your due diligence and like achieving justice for that person.
Sure.
Some of them don't, right? But there are like bad apples in every
industry.
For sure.
Exactly. But it is important to me to try to change how people view personal injury attorneys.
For sure.
And in a lot of ways, right? Like opening up greater self-expression, like we talked about.
Yeah.
Also showing like we have hearts, like we're gonna do the right thing. We're gonna handle your case with care and be thorough and diligent and all the things and get you a good outcome.
And I love when I was reading over just the company, you said something about like white glove service.
Yes.
And I think that that's such a cool thing. Like, I think of you as a very pristine and luxurious person.
Wow,
Thank you very
girl.
much.
She does.
I do.
Thank
I
you.
really do. But I think that that's the coolest
love you
part of
both.
the. We were paid to say that. But I think that that's one of those things too, where it's like when you can make somebody going through something feel special and feel nurtured, that is such a lost art in the world
Yes.
nowadays. Customer service, I mean, we both came from retail customer service, and
Yeah,
it's like
geez.
I was really good at it because I just cared about people and I went above and beyond, even if my paycheck was minimum wage. And I think when you start to say like white glove service is a non-negotiable for us, I think that that attracts such a great reputation.
Thank you for saying that. And I haven't shared this with anyone like publicly.
Oh,
But,
we get a special secret.
Yeah, you do. So I modeled, like I wanted to model the brand and that particular aspect of the brand, like the luxury white glove service, because again, it like is very different from how people I think view personal injury.
Sure.
And you see all these billboards around town that look kind of like basic and shot, like
Chintzy.
you probably
Mhm.
don't think like luxury,
Right.
right? Like, but people should know you can get, a luxury counterpart for the same fee or less.
Mhm.
But so I modeled it after like I think it's like the mission statement of the Four Seasons.
I read that.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So, they train their employees to like go above and beyond,
Take care of it.
each specific person and their needs. And if they have to like run out to the store to buy something for somebody who's staying in the hotel, like they do that.
Yep.
And that's how I want our business to be run, and I want to make our clients feel similarly to how they would feel being treated at Four Seasons.
I love that.
Yeah.
So what does white glove service mean to you? So if somebody's getting that, you say, we nailed it. What does that look like? Paint
Yeah.
a picture for us.
I think a big part of that is communication.
Mm,
So, I will begin like texting with clients on my personal cell,
yeah.
but we also have a text number through our case management software that like saves all the texts. So
Nice.
usually send them a follow-up, let them know like all of the communications will be saved to the file. Feel free to use this at your, convenience or
Mhm.
whatever. And when they do that, both the paralegal and I can see it and it's saved to the file. So prompt communication and, of course,
Yeah.
call them back in a timely fashion.
Yep.
You
Fair.
hear from a lot of people who transition from one firm to our firm, like they could never get a hold of an attorney.
Oh,
So
wow.
if they are
I
calling
believe
me, or
that.
they want to schedule a call with me, like I want to talk to them.
Sure.
Right.
Mhm.
And taking the time to give them like thorough advice. I've had clients call me who are represented by other firms, but they don't understand the
What's
issues in their
happening.
case. Yeah. Or
Mhm.
like, why is the offer what it is? Or do I have to do a deposition? Right. And so clearly there are some attorneys who aren't taking the time to explain these things. to me.
Right.
So I always want to make sure they understand like the legal framework.
Yeah.
And I also want to support them, right? Like I want to empower them.
Yes.
Because it's a scary process and there are negative connotations associated with like making a claim, like we talked about. But I want them to know like you are entitled to do this. This is your legal right and it's
Right.
your moral right. And I back you 100%. And I want them to feel, good about what they're doing and rather than feeling shame.
Yeah.
I think that's part of it. I think like the timeliness, right, of executing whatever
Yeah.
phase you're at in the case is important. And then I think thoroughness is important. Like what I've seen a lot of attorneys, just for example, when they're negotiating a claim, right? They'll just shoot off like an email with a number, like, okay, my counter offer is 48,000 or whatever, right?
Mhm.
You need to make an argument, right? Like review the file, assess like the most important points and outline those in support of your counter offer, right?
It sounds like
compelling.
personalizing it and actually
Yeah.
taking the time to actually consider versus just autopilot through
Yeah.
things.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then special touches, like I don't know if you've seen our new hoodies.
I have
Ooh,
not.
it sounds like we need to get some.
Yes,
We'll
we
send
do.
you some.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
But yeah, we're giving those to clients
I love
and
that.
we try to always thank people for their referrals too. So, all of those things.
The
We just want them to
additional
have an
special
overall
extras.
like the best experience that they can have that they can possibly have during one of the most difficult times in their life. I want to afford that to them.
Do you have clients? I've seen this before, and so I assume you do. How do you help a client that gets so overwhelmed that they're just like, I'm just gonna leave it. I don't want to go through this process. The
Yeah.
insurance company's probably gonna win anyway. I don't really want to deal with this. How do you help them to stay on the
Yeah,
path?
fortunately, I don't get that often.
Nice.
What I do get sometimes is like treatment fatigue. The statute of limitations on these cases is 3 years. And with really bad accidents, they may be treating for years. And sometimes they just get overwhelmed with that, right? Like, especially if they're returning to work or they have kids. A lot of these people are doing like chiropractic or physical therapy or both 3 times a week. They're getting an MRI, they're going to counseling, whatever.
Yeah.
Like, you could see how that would be really overwhelming. And I try to explain to them that this is all about trying to make you whole and getting you justice.
Mhm.
And if you settle a case before you're back to your baseline or before you've incurred the bills for the treatment that you need,
To actually be square.
exactly,
Mhm.
you can't reopen the case, right? And so normally when I explain that to people, and well, let me back up. So for example, let's say somebody settles because they're sick of treating. 6 months later, they find out they need a surgery, like a cervical fusion. That costs $250,000.
Ugh.
You cannot reopen the case for that, right? So
Yeah.
they're never going to get that bill covered. They're not going to be compensated for the pain and suffering associated with that. So usually when I explain that to them, they're ready to like, be all in and get what
Get
they
back
really
on track.
Yeah.
Yeah. Make sure that they're good.
Yeah.
So what made you decide to go out on your own? Because I don't know the statistics, but I would guess that there's not a lot of woman-owned law firms.
There are definitely more. I mean, I only know from my experience, right? But we're really lucky through the Colorado Trial Lawyers Association. There's a women's trial lawyers network.
Oh,
WTLN.
Wow.
Yes, and
I love to
a
hear
lot
that.
of women in that group own their own firms, so that's been so awesome to
Oh,
see.
that's so good to hear.
And
'Cause
it's a
I would,
great community.
That is
what
amazing.
made you decide to do that?
Yeah. So, Eric and I got together, and I guess we were
Off
so
LinkedIn.
right, exactly. Wink, wink. But we were so confident in our relationship. We decided to open a business before we were married. We are
Wow.
married now, but we weren't when we opened the firm. And we just had a vision. Like, I think we've talked about Brett Seeley. Do you know
Yeah.
him? He's a fitness photographer.
Yes.
So I shot with Brett when I like did some bodybuilding, like God, 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And I just loved like his style, right? It's very distinct.
Edgy.
And I just had this
cool.
vision in my mind, like, that is my brand.
Yeah.
And the firm I was with was similar to a lot of firms, and they weren't taking many risks in my appraisal. And we just kind of thought we could do a better job, with the branding piece and the customer service piece.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because when you like are in a place in your life where you're facing a big transition, and that can be so scary, and I felt that fear many times, but at that point I just like knew.
Yeah.
I was like, I got to do this. And he was nervous about it,
Sure.
but I felt guided,
Yeah.
Yes. Yes. So is now he a personal injury attorney? Okay. Awesome.
Yeah, he also does criminal defense.
Okay.
Yeah, he's amazing. I mean, he prosecuted all sorts of different cases when he was a DA. But now he defends all sorts of he saw some things that like that disillusioned him at the time. He thought that there was this drive to convict people when it wasn't necessarily warranted. Like sometimes people get caught up in that. We've all seen these wrongful conviction documentaries.
Sure.
lately.
Yes.
Yeah, that's a big
Right?
thing right now.
Yeah,
Yep.
it is.
They're all over.
Stop
I
it.
love that. I can't stop watching that. But so that's why he decided to do criminal defense, and he's gotten people off a lot of crazy charges, to
No.
his credit.
Amazing.
Yes.
So does your law firm, does it just specialize in personal injury, or you have the criminal defense, or is it a little bit of both?
Yeah, it's both. So I do personal injury, wrongful
Okay.
death. Eric does that as well, and then he also does some criminal defense.
Okay.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, we both work with our husbands.
We
So
do.
tell me the good, tell me the struggles, tell me how that looks for you.
Sure. So, yep, again, to be
Yep.
really honest, it was tough at first because we had to learn one another's work styles,
Mhm.
and they were different. So I think at the DA's office, and even he'd only done criminal defense for about 6 months at a different firm before we opened ours.
Okay.
But it sounds like it was a lot more collaborative than I was used to. Like people are popping into each other's offices all day and like chatting and
Social circle.
right, which is fine. That's great. But like I'm trying to focus and knock shit out, right?
Mhm.
So I would tell him like it would be really helpful to me if you can like send me an email and I'll respond when I'm done with my task, or send me a calendar invite and then we'll chat about it. And I don't know if he was like offended. That might be too strong of a word. But
Get on my calendar.
yeah,
What activity
we have
doing
to
your-
like get on the same page.
Yeah.
Right? But since I honestly love working. I mean, you probably experienced this too, where there's just like
Totally.
a different level of trust,
For sure.
than you would have with some random person or even a friend or.
Yeah. I mean, I think we had very similar experiences in the beginning. Like we initially shared an office, which was like the worst thing we could have ever done because
No
he
chase with each
likes music and I like it quiet. He wants to chat. I'm like, please don't talk to me. I'm trying to think through
Yeah.
things, And so we definitely realized we needed a little bit of separation. But now, as the dust has settled, there's a book. It's called Rocket Fuel. It
Yeah.
talks about like the two components to make rocket fuel and how they're so opposite, right? And those are needed in order to actually catapult. And so I read that book and that was a game changer because I was like, okay, he's never going to be like me. And actually that's great because he's good at things that I'm not good at. And there's
Love that.
we just were able to leverage each other. But to your point, you're gonna, if you're working with your spouse, if you're out there in a business with your spouse, like you're gonna fight. Like that's just part
Yeah.
of it. You're gonna
Yeah,
disagree. We're Latin, so maybe we fight more than the average.
Probably not more than you do.
Okay, so there you go. But you're gonna have those bumps. But to your point, I've never felt more secure in business with someone because we're real partners, like life partners. That's the higher stakes, is that we need to work out in that.
long
So,
term.
And
yeah.
I mean, the feeling of fulfillment from building something like that with your person,
For sure.
it's really beautiful.
I love it. So what do you, other than being just the most amazing attorney and owning this great business, I know this answer already, but like, what's life like what makes you happy? What are the things that
Yeah.
fulfill you?
I try to meditate. Sometimes I'm like more in the flow of that than at other times, but it really is a game changer. I do it regularly. Do you meditate?
Not on a regular basis, but
So,
she's got a story.
yeah, I do have a
Tell
story.
me.
I'm pretty excited about this, actually. It's weird that this came up because I was very excited about this. Okay. I've never been able to meditate because my brain goes so fast and it always just comes up into me getting anxious because I'm thinking about my to-dos, right?
Totally.
So just last week, I decided, okay, I'm going to start. I also hate working out. I hate anything physical or anything that's like slow. Like
We're the
all of those things.
opposite in
It's
this.
true.
Okay.
So I said, I'm going to start doing this. I want to start feeling better. I want to, I'm getting older, all the fun things. And so I said, I'm going to work out and I'm going to meditate every day.
Wow.
But my way to
Ambitious.
do it, I know, right? From nothing to everything. But what I said was, I'm going to do it with my son. My son is 7 and he enjoys like our personal time together. So we've been meditating. It's an app. It's called Better Me, I think is what it's called.
Yeah,
And so
I've heard
it
of
just helps you like kind of get focused and they talk. So that helps me because the complete silence is what throws me off. I've been doing it for a little over a week now. It's the craziest thing. I don't know. My husband said this is like a thing in meditation. But I had this experience where it was like this extreme peace and my body was literally buzzing.
Yeah.
And I had this like, I know I'm getting chills
love
even
it.
just talking about it. It
Body
was so
experience.
crazy to me. And
That's
I
it,
was
girl.
like,
It's so beautiful.
I feel like I'll chase that forever now.
Yeah.
So now it went from something I was doing as like this is part of, people who are
Sure.
successful are saying they do
Yeah,
this.
right.
Let me do this too. Like, let me just copy that. To now I'm like, oh, that feeling is so cool. Like it was the first time I felt like peace sitting still in, I'm not exaggerating, probably
Yeah.
my whole life, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah. It's
Yep.
amazing. I'm so glad that you experienced that because it is just like the most beautiful feeling.
Mhm.
Crazy.
It's like expansive and like orgasmic, like the more I'm telling you.
I
She was
used that
refraining.
word. I used that word.
I was like, whether I should say it or not, but did you say you've used
I
that word?
literally used that word to my husband. I said, I don't know how to explain. It was like out of body. It was like orgasm. It was like,
Yeah.
it was like, I want to chase that again. It was so pure.
Right.
And I don't know. And at the time, this is like dorky too, but like my 7-year-old was holding my hand. And that sounds weird now that I just said orgasmic and I was holding my son's
No,
hand. But it was
We get it.
a little creepy. But it was just this beautiful, pure experience that
Yeah.
like, I just, so meditating.
I'm
Sorry.
chasing that too, girl.
Yes.
The other thing, which I know you're waiting for me to say, rollerblading, baby. It's actually so fun. And I was telling her it's coming back. I'm seeing more and more.
There is
rollerbladers
a lot
at
of
Wash
roller-
Park
yep.
all the time. And I don't think we look that weird.
It reminds me of
But
the
it's
Barbie
so fun.
movie where it just
It probably looks like Barbie.
Oh,
going
for
up
sure
the
looks like
ice.
Barbie.
Well, my sister and I, we got this like little mesh backpack so we could put our speaker in there. and
Okay.
play, like 90s R&B.
Oh, I
Oh,
love
yes.
that.
It's just so
It's a
I
vibe.
love it. Yeah. And then we've got 3, we had 4 mini dachshunds, we have 3 now. But
I'm so
still
sorry.
like a whole crew. And they're amazing and they're so cute and so fun. So we just hang out with them a lot. We'll take them, for walks and then documentaries is probably my other pastime.
What's the documentary you recommend? What's one of the best ones you've watched recently?
Last night, I forget the name of this series. There's 8 seasons. It's on HBO.
Hmm.
And it's like what really happened or something. And
Okay.
they talk about different cases and like what happened
Oh.
in the cases or, historic events. The one we watched, the episodes we watched last night were about the Titanic.
Okay.
Oh.
And I just love everything.
Same.
So,
World War II and Titanic are like my two.
yeah,
Very
right?
interesting.
I know.
Yeah.
We're big history buffs too. But I think it's called like What Really Happened. I highly
Okay.
recommend.
We'll have to look it up.
Yeah. I do love a documentary. And I also like crime series and all that stuff. I like all that dark stuff. There's one on Netflix right now. It's called Worst Neighbor Ever. Have you watched that one?
Yes. Oh my gosh, it's so creepy. Like I have to be in a particular state of mind to be
It's
able to watch that.
dark. It's pretty dark. I watch it before bed, which is probably not helping my
Yeah, me
peaceful
too.
mind.
You're gonna need to meditate before bed.
That's right.
How about that?
That's right. Well, okay. So last question that I have, and then
Yep.
we'll open it up to anything you want to talk
Cool.
about. But our whole premise is really around entrepreneurs as well. What are some things that have surprised you about opening the law firm and being self-employed and running the ship and doing all of those
Mhm.
things? What are some lessons you would give as someone who's maybe opening a law firm or opening a business that you would say, this is some stuff I would like someone to know?
What surprised me is like how much damn work the administrative business side is.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like its own job.
Mhm.
It really can be challenging. And so what I've had to learn and the advice that I would give is delegating, like learning to delegate. I am,
Leverage,
Very-
leverage.
Yep.
and that's been, I don't know about for y'all, but that's been
Oh.
a challenge for me.
Oh yeah,
It's a huge challenge.
Yeah,
because we're control freaks.
exactly. So I was gonna say, ladies like us, we're
Mhm.
very type A.
Mhm.
Nice way of putting it, but yeah, we're control freaks, and so that was really challenging for me to be able to delegate, but finding the right people to
Mhm.
delegate to is key.
Yes.
And if you find that there is somebody who doesn't share the same vision or standards, like you got to get rid of them, and you got to get rid of them quickly. I mean, that can be hard. It can
Yep.
be really, really difficult, but it's so important for the culture and the spirit of your
Oh,
business.
it can be
right?
extremely cancerous when you have
Yeah.
the
Oh,
wrong
yeah.
person. And
Yeah.
I always believed the adage, and we both came from management and leadership for many, many years, but it's like hire slow and fire fast,
Mhm.
because once you know it's not working, cutting ties with that, it can be so corrosive to just continue to drudge and you want something more than someone wants it, or they start poisoning the well. I think that's super duper important.
Yeah.
And I was just talking to my husband about this because we like to see the best in people, right? We like to try to figure out how to fit that puzzle piece, even though it doesn't fit into the right spot. And
Right.
I was telling him, I read something that really changed my mindset around partnership and business with people too, because it said, if you wouldn't be in business with them a lifetime, don't be in business with them for a day. Yep.
Wow.
And when I looked at that, where I could say, like, would I do business with you forever? Or is this just a quick fix? Or is it just, I'm trying to see the good in you, or I hope you're going to be better.
Totally.
If I can't see this being something that's long-term, I'm not going to do it. And I think
You're
that,
lowering your standard
Yep.
essentially, right?
oh yeah, I mean, you definitely, realize how much time consumption comes with the wrong people.
Yep.
That's all wasted.
So true.
Yep.
Oh,
And you also don't want that ripple effect to happen amongst your staff. Not only can they be
Yes.
cancerous with your staff, but then your staff can also have bad habits because you're letting this person get away with this, or they're having to pick up the slack because they're doing everything wrong and different things of that nature. But I've always been a firm believer of PIP, we're getting rid of you, what I
Yeah.
mean? If you can't figure it out, we're gonna have those conversations right away before it gets.
Yeah. Being
Yeah.
clear with your expectations from the beginning.
exactly. And having like some sort of procedure or process in place to hold them accountable, like
Mhm.
PIP.
Yep.
We didn't really have that, right? Like,
Sure.
and I feel like generally it hasn't been needed because we're choosing the right people,
Yeah.
right? They have what is it? Is it called an internal locus or whatever? Right? They
Oh, yeah.
drive
Yep,
themselves,
yep.
right?
Oh,
I
yeah.
don't need to govern them or monitor them, and that's
Right.
what I want. Like that's what I respect in a person and an employee. But if they're dropping the ball, they have to be held accountable for
Mhm.
that. And I think there was a period of time early on where we were kind of like, well, we'll talk to you about it, and then like there's no consequence.
Right.
That can't happen.
Yeah. They
And
need to know.
so it requires you to have like to be somebody who can have those difficult conversations. And that's a skill that you have to develop over time, right? Because it's tough.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
But that's your role.
Especially in the beginning.
Yes.
Yep.
I asked once,
Just say.
I was just thinking about, I was asked once, they said, how do you feel about confrontation? And I said, I love it. And the person laughed. They were like, geez, it made me sound so
Go girl.
aggressive. But I was like, well, I was told pretty early on in my leadership career that someone said, you're thinking it of confronting the other person. You're confronting the problem
Right.
together. When
Problem
you take that out of, I'm in confrontation with you, I'm not trying to confront you. I'm
Yeah.
trying to confront the problem with you and figure out if there's a solution to be had.
I love
And
that.
if it's not going to be had, I want to confront the non-solution scenario and explain to you why this isn't going to work. And normally people don't want to be in an environment where they're doing a bad job anyway. Maybe it's just not the right fit. So I think that changed my conversations, because to Laura's point, the earlier you have them, the easier they are. The times where it's gotten really bad, it's because I'm ignoring it. I'm hoping it'll go away. And maybe it's a hard time. And they're doing this. And then you just
Exactly.
start to realize I created a monster. This
Yep.
person's not going to get back on track now.
Right.
It's a bigger
Yeah.
problem.
I can relate in there.
Yes.
Yeah, one other thing that I would offer as advice to business owners
Yes.
is like fostering your intuition.
Mm,
And I don't know, I think it's especially hard for women because the way that we're raised, right? We're like, I mean, this is to a lesser degree now, but even back in the 90s and like early 2000s, I feel like we were more objectified and like we're second class citizens, and it just makes it hard for you to trust yourself.
for sure.
But being on your own and having your own business, like it's this insulated thing, right? And you can build it into whatever you want. And so I think following your intuition with all of your decisions is really, really, really important.
I agree.
I agree.
Well, and it's not only because we need to trust ourselves as business owners and know that we're just as capable, but I think the safety aspect comes in for us that doesn't come in for men. Like
Totally.
I don't think it does. I've explained this to my husband before. I'm like, you don't ever have to evaluate your surroundings for just normal day to day. And so, I don't know if you've experienced this, but I know we both have.
Yep.
We do lead generation. We reach out to strangers. We do these things and get creepy messages. And I've got guys' pictures in their underwear, nasty
Weird.
things, and it's so creepy. You experience that a lot?
Go ahead.
Terrible. I've gotten some of that from clients
Okay.
where they're like, they see my photo like in my email signature block and they'll say like, oh, you're hot or whatever. And like in the past, right? Maybe I would have like played it, like laughed it off or whatever. Now I say to them, like, I appreciate the compliment, but let's be sure to keep it professional.
Love
Yep,
that.
I
Right?
love
Just to
that.
like set the expectation
Yep.
for how we're going to communicate with each other going forward. And they have respected that and honored that.
Yep.
Um,
I guess as
that's
like,
scary.
it's super
You have to be
scary.
careful,
Yeah, no, you have to
both
be
of you.
careful,
Oh, yeah.
especially as women in real estate too, because so many agents will just go meet a stranger at a house
Yeah.
or, you know, there could be bad things that happen at open houses if you're not careful. And, you know, those
Personal
things.
information's plastered all over a sign in
Oh
front of
yeah, it's like she's gonna be right there. Like I've gotten creepy messages before and people will show up to an
Yeah.
open house and I'm just like, thank God, you
That's
know,
scary.
people know, you know, I don't conceal a carry right now, but you know, those are the
Yes,
things.
she does. Just kidding.
I was just gonna mention that.
And there's different steps you need to take and such to say stay safe, I think
Right.
is the biggest thing. But even just the time wasters and understanding, you know, when I first got into real estate, my very first person I thought was my client sent me a proof of funds. I got it directly from his bank. He had plenty of money to buy. He was wasting my time. I was outsourcing off markets. He wanted a rainbow, like a literal unicorn house in Congress Park. I found him the unicorn house in
Wow.
Congress Park.
Nice.
And then he, after spending so much time with him, he was like, no, I don't actually want to buy.
But I do want to date with you.
I want to date with you. I just
Did he
wanted to,
really?
he just wanted to spend time with me. And so for me, that was a really great learning to have in the beginning, probably not financially the best time for me to learn it.
You're like, but will you still buy this house?
But you get into real estate, you're like, oh yeah, I have someone who's ready cash, $2.5 million. Like,
Right.
this is something I want to spend my time on. And so I learned really I have to screen through these people. And some men are just creepy. Some women are
Yeah.
creepy too, I'll be honest.
Yeah.
But I guess, you know, to transition out of this conversation,
Have to.
no, we can
That's
we can
like,
talk
let me
about
tell
this.
you
I
about
can
it.
talk about this conversation all day.
Yeah. Do.
But as a woman, I know there's, you know, more women lawyers, attorneys, everything. And, you know, you mentioned you have that group now, which is great. What has kind of, as a woman, has there been challenges or instances that you've had to overcome?
Yeah. I'm taking a big deep sigh.
Yes, I
because-
saw you getting prepared.
Yeah, I actually had a CCRD, which is the state equivalent of EEOC, Equal Employment Opportunity Commission. So like a gender discrimination case.
Wow.
So I've dealt with like a lot of those issues. But I would say like, and I can kind of go into what happened in that case a bit more, but I would say just in general, like especially being a younger woman, I feel like I was consistently underestimated, which is fine because like
Right.
I'll surpass the bar that you have set for me.
That's right.
No question. But there was like a certain level of like disrespect and I don't know. I just feel like I was dismissed, right? So sometimes I would be sitting there waiting to start a deposition and they would think like they would assume that I'm the court reporter. I couldn't possibly be the lawyer.
Right.
Men in their 50s and 60s would like scream at me at the top of their lungs. I've now
Try to
since
intimidate
learned, right?
you.
Yeah, because I'm more experienced now. That's not normally how depositions are conducted.
Right.
But like it used to happen to me all the time.
They wouldn't do that with their
No, they
AKA
wouldn't do that to me
counterpart.
now. I mean, now
Mhm.
that like I'm more established and I think that like
You've
they're
had a-
familiar
You've proven
with me,
yourself.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But no, it's been hard. And I learned at the firm that I was with that there were pay disparities between the men and the women. I was like basically kept from participating in certain marketing events that all of the men were invited to, right? Like golfing events and things like that. They would try to have me take on lower paying like cases, and do like more time consuming research projects, like on behalf of other men employees, right?
Keep
So
you
they can
doing
spend
a
their
job
time
that they don't want to
doing the
do and
cases,
pushing
right?
Yeah,
things
making
out.
the money.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then just sometimes you would hear disparaging comments. It was really rough. I mean, that was one of the reasons I felt really called to create a different culture.
Mhm.
I think that's so powerful though. I was just speaking to somebody about this and saying, there's two ways that you can deal with inequality or, issues. And one is what we were talking about. We were talking about race at the time. And, we're in this office in Littleton. So it's primarily one ethnicity,
Totally.
right? And I walked in and I definitely noticed that I was kind of out of sorts. And to me, that wasn't something that was bothersome because I was used to that. That was pretty common for me. But this agent was saying, I don't know if this is going to be the place for me because, I don't really see, he was Middle Eastern. And he said, I don't really see anybody like of my ethnicity in here. And I just don't know if it's fit. don't you feel that way? Because, it's kind of similar for you. And I said, it's just an interesting way to look at it, in my opinion, because when you see a problem with something, my response is, if I don't think there's enough minorities in the building, the last thing I'm gonna do is remove myself and make it a higher percentage.
Yeah.
But I think the same with you. I think, you saw something, and instead of saying like, oh, this is just the way this is, or, oh my gosh, I'm gonna go and find another place. You created your own place. You
Yeah.
created something that said, I'm gonna be a safe haven for other people to not have to experience this if they come work for us.
Yeah. I admire that quality about you.
Thank you. I admire equality for you. I think that takes a strength to say, I haven't had the best experience, and I'm not going to let that, deter me from what I want to do, but I'm going to be able to create you're creating a white glove service for
yourself,
for your people, it feels like too.
Yeah.
So what about just the overall creating and building your business? Like, how can people find you? How can we support your business? Like, what can we do?
Love those questions. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Well, we're on all the socials.
Yes.
Our office is down in the tech center, but we handle cases throughout the state. We can pretty much we learned during COVID, we can do everything remotely.
That's right.
And so I offer that to everybody. And I would say like 90% of clients take me up on that now. And it makes sense, right? Because most of them don't have a car and they're trying to get to their medical appointment. The
They're
last thing we want
injured.
to do is like inconvenience them.
Yeah.
So certainly we can do Zoom calls, phone calls, whatever, but we're able to do all the paperwork remotely. Obviously we can communicate with them about their treatment and all of the ongoing issues in the case by phone, text, email, whatever they prefer.
Yeah.
And then we can do disbursements remotely at the end of the case as well.
Okay.
But I miss seeing my clients, honestly. So,
Sure. It
of
is
course,
nice
I would love
to
for them
yes.
to come in. Yeah, and hopefully people are starting to see our billboards all around town
Yes.
and
telling you.
and our messages.
Oh,
I'm really stoked. I don't know if you've seen the new one. I'm really excited about the
I
new one.
haven't.
It's like a feminist theme. So
Ooh.
it says the future in parentheses of personal injury is female.
I
Ooh,
love
I
it.
love it.
Have you noticed there are like no personal injury billboards featuring women?
Oh,
Why is that? Right? I mean, like, seems like a problem.
I think
Yep.
what you said is really true. I think people are afraid to go out there and do something different. I think
Yeah.
that it's very easy to just say like, I heard that, I don't know if you heard that a lot when you started in real estate, but oh, people don't do that, or that's not how you do this.
Yep.
And they're like, that's how I do it. That's what I want to do. This is, and I think it's just really important. And I loved your point about saying, people didn't think you were there. I just showed houses earlier this morning, and I was showing a friend, and she's casual. So I was casual. I had some Vans on and a little dress, and the guy said, when is the broker going to be here? And I said, that's me. And he was like, and I
What?
was like, excuse me, sir.
Conscious.
It was so, oh yeah, it was, yeah, I think it was
Oh,
almost
yeah.
like it was mind blown that was even
Yeah.
possible. So when we were walking out, she didn't like the house. We were walking out. She was like, do you like the house?
Fortunately.
I'm like,
Yeah.
we don't.
Right.
We don't. It was just so funny to me.
No,
So
we'll be calling.
it's crazy though that we're still in a world like that. Like sometimes I think we're more progressed than we've progressed more than we have. And sometimes I get really, I have to evaluate again, like, no, I've progressed and you've progressed and you've
right.
progressed. There are people, but there's still a world that's very like, this is what it looks like.
And it's just such an impactful mindset because how many women would want to do what you've done, but because of what had happened in their own law firm and how they've been discriminated against and different things have happened, that they're like, ooh,
Oh yeah, you're
I
trailblazing,
can't,
sister.
I have to step back because, I don't know what's going to happen. I might be out of a job,
Yeah.
but
And I understand that because, to effectuate change, you have to do something different.
Mhm.
But by virtue of it being different, not everyone's going to accept it.
That's
Yep.
right.
And like it opens you up to criticism.
Yep.
And you have to develop a tough skin.
Yeah.
And I feel like I've been able to do that over time. But yeah, I mean, I think it wasn't this billboard, the last one. It was like kind of a sultry picture of me. And I got a really scary voicemail from like somebody. It just blows my fucking mind that somebody would think like this is appropriate to do when you see a picture of somebody on a billboard. He called me and said something like, you look like a fucking prostitute, or like just something so
oh my
outrageous.
God.
Right? When you see a lawyer on a billboard and like you think
That's
that's
the
where you're going.
right?
Especially with how over sexualized our society is. Like
Right.
I was just watching something on like regular TV and I was like, My kids were there. I was like, Jesus, it was so like
Well, but let me
overt.
just say this. I had a suit on, like a full
Right.
suit.
Oh no,
Yep.
even
No,
I
it's
think I've
because
done,
you looked
but-
good. Like that's all it was.
Right.
You looked
Yeah.
really good. You were still
Well, thank you.
professional and
Right. And that was my goal, right? To like do me, have all my earrings and
That's
my
right.
makeup and shit. But like I had a suit on. Because like that's symbolic too. But yeah, I mean it was kind of scary. Like
Oh, that's
I mean,
so
I'm not thinking about it all the time, but it just like,
It
you know,
threw
it's an
you off.
example of like how we think that society has progressed.
and where we're still at in some
But
places.
Yeah.
there are still some people out there who
well, and I think also,
aren't getting it.
yeah, no, at all,
There you go.
at all.
You're still at the starting line.
Right.
Yeah, and I think there's also so many people out there that they try to make themselves feel better that you're successful because you're pretty, you know, or I don't know if that happens to you. That has happened to me quite a lot in real estate, that that's the only reason I'm successful. Not that I'm up till midnight working my ass off
Right.
trying to get, you know,
They're trying
everything
to
ready
discount
and
you
stuff.
in some way.
And they're trying to discount you and,
Absolutely.
you know, to make themselves feel better
Yeah.
about the situation. And you've accomplished more than most. And, you know, that's can be something that happens.
Go us.
And I'm gonna
Feather
pick,
Yes.
I'm gonna pick on men a little bit, which surprised
We
the
love
the
it.
podcast.
We
Sorry,
generally love
Paul.
men, though.
Sorry, Paul.
Yeah.
Oh, I love some men.
Right.
Not all.
Some. That's
Some of them are great. But what I was gonna say is, you know, I think we have to stop justifying certain people's actions, and their lack of self-control has nothing to do with us.
Yep.
Like, you know, that's the thing that I'm really starting to understand is where there is this justification of, well, what she was wearing, or, you know,
Oh
she
my
was there
God.
by herself, or she was doing this, or
Yep.
she got too drunk, or whatever. And Laura and I've had this conversation in depth, but it's like, your lack of self-control has nothing to do with me.
That's
So,
a disgusting argument,
Oh, it's
frankly. Like you can
horrible.
perpetrate a crime against somebody because of XYZ.
or not even a crime,
Abso-fucking-lutely not.
not even a crime,
Right,
though, is
or
what
even
I'm
just
saying. It's just
discrimination,
an
right?
action, just a
Yeah.
look, just a
Just a phone call.
ogling, you know, it's like your lack of self-control has nothing to do with me.
Right.
I'm out available to be in the world however I want. And I don't care if I'm walking down the street naked. That has nothing to do with you and your actions and what you
Totally.
say and do. And so I think accountability is a big thing, I think, that needs to start to come into, you know, this
Mhm.
next wave of, it's 2024, bucko, like
agree.
this is accountability time.
And it's starting to happen, right?
Yep.
Like, I mean, with Me Too,
Yes.
and thank God. I think that that's in part why things are starting to shift as they are.
That's right.
Because people are finally being held accountable.
That's right.
And so I eat that shit up. You know,
I
like
love
I
it.
will call motherfuckers out all day. Like
I
I've
love
talked
it.
very publicly about what happened at my firm with the case and the
Mhm.
things that I experienced there.
Yep.
When we get shitty calls about our billboards, like we turned one into like a little commercial, right?
Oh,
Like,
I love
this
that.
guy said something like, "What douchebags?" And then we flash all over like 6 and 7 figure verdicts.
That's
It's just
right.
like, you know, you look like a fucking idiot.
Right. Yeah, there's always going to be I don't know if you've ever read Brene Brown, but she talks about that, and it's the whole speech around, I think it was the president, so I'm gonna butcher it. But it's about the people in the cheap seats, right? It's about just the people who are criticizing are usually the people that aren't doing anything. They're
Totally.
sitting on their
Yeah.
couch fighting with people about what they don't like about what they're doing, because they're doing nothing. Most of us that are out performing and doing things, we don't care who's winning and who's losing, because we're out running our own race. And so I think that's an important thing. And I like that you're taking that power back as far as, you want to say something about me? Let's talk about
Yeah,
it.
I'm gonna turn it.
I
and
love
use
it. I love you. You're
I love you
amazing.
too. I love
We
you
want
both.
to
You're
have
so-
everybody who, hopefully you never need a personal injury
I
attorney.
truly,
I
truly
truly
in
hope
my
that.
heart hope that. Yeah.
But
I
if
mean,
you
it's-
do,
and I've been that, like I've been through an accident when I was in law school.
oh yeah.
But yeah, if you do.
Yes, I was my chiropractor. It was so weird, knock on actual wood, that I don't have this happen, but it was the course of like in a year and a half, I got into 3 accidents, and they were
No
all
way.
weird anomalies he was like, you must be a terrible driver. And I was like, literally,
That's not
all
a
of these
Walmart.
had nothing to do with me. One, I was parked, and someone
Yeah.
hit me while I was in a parked car. And then when somebody slid on an ice, and then this one was really sad, actually. This one actually got me hurt, and I was in the chiropractor, but her husband had a major injury skiing, and he was going to be like paralyzed. And she
Oh my
was
gosh.
not knowing where she was going and driving and panicking. and she didn't, and she just hit me at a red light. And I was so mad. This was my third accident. So I get out like ready to fight. I'm like, are you? And then she explained to me what happened. And I was like,
That's
so
heartbreaking. I mean, like for both of you.
yeah, I was not
Mhm.
as bad in the situation, even though at the
I'm sorry
initial
that hurt.
times. But I think, finding the right attorney is overwhelming when you're hurt.
Mm-hmm.
Because you're like, where do I start? Like, I don't, it's just like anything else, referral partners of any kind.
Right.
You're like, oh. So I've used Lauren many times to give me referrals of other kinds of attorneys as well. But
I'm always happy to do.
I appreciate
Mhm.
that. But yes, if people need you, I would strongly, strongly recommend.
Thank you so
Yes.
much. And I will likewise continue to recommend the both of you.
Thank
Yeah.
you. I appreciate it.
you.
Thank you for coming. We appreciate you.
Thanks again for having me. It was fun.
Yay.